The Telegraph's own podcast, The Daily Tea. So we're talking right-wing media here, not something like The Guardian or The Mirror or something like that. I'm talking The Telegraph, the paper that's had Nigel Farage on as a warm and welcome guest more times than either of us can count, just called the Clacton by-election the biggest mistake of Nigel Farage's contemporary political career. And that's his own side. That's his own side of the press.
Does look like it's back of a fag packet stuff, I've got to be perfectly honest. I don't think they did wargame it properly, did it? Because it's now looking, frankly, farcical.
And that is even before we get to what happens when Reform send their own people out to defend it. This is a two-part story. Part one, the outlets that are supposed to be in Farage's corner are turning on the tactics. And part two, watch what happens when Reform's rising star tries to clean up the mess anyway. So let's start with the Telegraph, because the framing matters. Daily Tea isn't some anti-reform outlet looking for a scalp. This is the show that's had Farage on to discuss the legacy of Brexit, that treats him as a serious, credible figure worthy of a friendly hour of airtime.
Everything I'm saying, by the way, honestly comes from a place of love. I know Reform people will be watching this and thinking, oh, you just hate Reform, you just having it.
Oh,
No. I'm genuinely open-minded. I want to see which centre-right party is going to be the opposition party at the next election. Yeah.
I mean, it's the first rule of politics.
Yeah.
Grow a thick skin.
Yeah.
Just take it. You know, it's not a nice
Ride
world.
it out.
Now, you can tell that that's not a hostile interviewer building a takedown. That's someone who likes the party, watching the party leader make what she calls a serious strategic blunder and feeling the need to say it out loud that she's not enjoying this. But she actually touches on the part that should worry Reform more than the finances. Whilst this is all unfolding, there's going to be another election, the Manchester mayoral election, Andy Burnham's own backyard, and a race Reform generally had a shot at making him, an embarrassment for him.
What has the party now told its workers to do? Stop campaigning in Manchester. Come to Clacton.
Yes, Reform UK activists have been urged to divert from the Greater Manchester mayoral by-election to support Nigel Farage's contest 250 miles away.
Reform activists are now told to stop campaigning in Manchester and come to Clacton instead. It reminds me of the Boris Johnson, we need to put a square around the Pritzker kind of mentality, that one person is more than the party itself. And again, they point out how it hammers home that this is just a one-man band.
Government.
Well, they'll say all Nigel is interested in is Nigel.
Yes.
And then they will
It looks
reaffirm
like that.
But then they'll reaffirm what he has been denying for months and years. He will reaffirm that it really is a one-man band.
Yeah.
That this whole party has to convene because basically his skin hasn't been thick enough.
I mean, directing resources away from a fight that a man, who's about to become Prime Minister, to instead help Farage answer his own finances 250 miles away. If you're a Reform activist who signed up to help take the fight to Labour, and instead you're being asked to go door knocking so your leader can feel vindicated about a $5 million gift, it's not a small ask, especially when his only opponent is a man dressed as a bin. It's also costing them money. A Telegraph exclusive cited at the same episode reports a donor who gave them $25,000 to the party, saying he won't contribute again until what he calls this cloud hanging over the issue is resolved. And then there's this. This should really sting, because it turns out Farage's own language is being used against him. He framed the whole thing as the people versus the establishment. Kemi Badenoch responded by saying if that's really the case, then Count Binface might be the people's candidate. Now, it might just be a throwaway joke, but that's the leader of the opposition using Farage's own campaign slogan to hand the underdog status to a man in a bin costume. At the time of writing, the bookies had Farage at 1-6 to win and Binface at 7-2. Long odds against him actually losing, but short enough that a serious bookmaker thinks it's worth pricing in the humiliation. One more thread worth pulling before we move on though, because it's a contradiction sitting inside Reform's own ranks. Robert Jenrick was asked directly whether the party had wargamed the scenario where no major party fielded a candidate against Farage.
Answer.
When you were making decisions about what to do, did you wargame this possibility that they would not run?
For sure. Look, we know that they're like this. Look.
Now, Jenrick had said for sure they'd considered every scenario, but Farage himself in a separate interview was asked exactly the same question and gave the opposite answer.
Mr. Farage confessed, no, of course not. Why would they not contest? It's a real election.
So that's two people at the top of Reform giving contradictory answer. Either Jenrick's overselling the strategy after the fact, or Farage wasn't really told what the strategy was. So that's the coverage from people who like Reform. Now watch what happens when Reform sends somebody out who actually wants to defend all of this. Laila Cunningham, Reform's hand-picked candidate for London Mayor in 2028, personally announced by Farage himself in no internal contest, has done this a few times over the space of a few days now, on different stations, and fallen apart every single time. Tom Swarbrick managed to get her to admit that she doesn't understand the actual words that she's using.
No, I mean, being the chairman of a political party is like an honorary role. He was not politically active. And
as the chairman of... But Nigel Farage, as leader of that organisation before he was an MP, was doing that. He was asking all of those things. He was saying vote reform.
No, he was a social media influencer. He was a GB News supporter.
He was not publicly agitating for people to vote for reform whilst the chairman of that organisation.
I haven't seen all his social media posts. I don't. Nigel's convinced, and he's sure that he's sought legal advice. He has done nothing.
Yes. So you would agree, if he had been advocating for reform in that role, he would be being politically active in the way in which you're absolutely right. The person who's the accountant would not.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know the exact term of what politically active, and it seems to be quite subjective depending on who you're talking to.
Krishnan Guru Murthy managed to get her to admit that she doesn't have or hasn't seen the proof of her claims.
I'm surprised you're not focusing on the fact that the National Crime Agency leaked one of our MPs' bank statements to The Guardian. Yeah, I do.
You don't know where it came from?
We have proof of it. Of course I do.
What's the proof?
We have proof that it came from the National Crime Agency.
What is the proof?
I don't have it myself. You're going to have to ask Richard Tice.
And now she's popped up on Talk TV in what she must have thought would have been an easier ride. Cunningham opens by claiming that the political class closed ranks within 24 hours to gang up on Farage. Ooh, the big bullies. Proof, she says, of an establishment conspiracy.
If ever you've seen how the political class is ganging up against Nigel, this is the prime example. They closed ranks within 24 hours, went to speak to the speaker, and they all, if there's any example of how they all gang up against him, not to stand in a by-election, and you know very well as I do that if they thought any chance of beating him at the ballot box, they would have stood someone.
I completely agree with you on that, but they don't have to gang up on it. They can just individually decide we don't want to play.
Julia doesn't let it go, though. The actual body investigating him includes members who aren't party political at all, and Tory MPs on that committee have previously condemned their own party's MPs and even Conservative prime ministers. Cunningham's answer is to say that it's not the same thing as parties colluding to cancel elections.
If they don't play, they literally just don't play his game, then his tactic doesn't work.
It's not a game, it's democracy. There are two questions that want to be... Did Nigel break the rules? And that's something for the parliamentary standards. What do you think?
No, but he's saying, OK, if the argument is you've heard everything, well, they haven't heard everything because we haven't got the evidence. No, I follow this stuff quite closely, Laila, and I haven't heard everything, so I'd be very surprised if your average voter in Clacton has.
How do you know you haven't heard everything? You're assuming there's more to come.
Because we don't have the outcome of that investigation in Parliament.
But the outcome is a separate process, and that will come.
The outcome will give us a lot of information. There'll be a report, and we'll tell us.
It will just be like if he's suspended or not.
No,
it will be if he broke parliamentary rules.
No, because it will outline how he voted, how he broke the rules, or how he didn't break the rules. So there is an independent body that decides this.
Now, this bit is probably worth playing back to Reform voters.
Is this the hill to die on? The right to take £5 million from crypto billionaires and hang out with a convicted fraudster?
The hill to die on is that politicians, the final say in a democracy are the voters.
Absolutely.
And that's it. And that is the hill to die on.
Is this really the hill to die on? The right to take $5 million from a crypto billionaire and associate with a convicted fraudster? Now, did you notice that Cunningham doesn't actually answer that question? She answers a different one entirely. The hill to die on is that politicians' final say in a democracy are the voters, which is usually a sign someone's rehearsed that answer to a question that wasn't really asked. Then the collapse. Julia asks what Reform's actual defence policy is. When pushed about being ready for government, Julia just, bam, nails her.
By the way, Reform aren't seriously calling for general elections.
Yes, we are seriously calling for a general election.
You guys are not ready for you haven't even got candidates vetted.
What we're calling for, Julia. Of course we are calling for a general election. Bring it on.
Not seriously, you're not.
100%.
You know perfectly well your party isn't. Your party is not remotely ready. You don't even have spokespeople on some of the key subjects like defence.
Do you think it only comes down to spokespeople? Do you think
I
seriously?
don't think
being
it
ready for an
only
election
comes. I think
comes
having
down to
candidates
spokespeople?
in
We
place
have
who are
Nigel.
vetted,
Nigel's the
spokespeople.
best person to speak on defence.
Cunningham's first move is to nominate Farage as the best person to speak on defence, rather than state it as a policy. Pushed again, she says that she's not going to go through the defence policy right now, which is a strange thing to say about a policy if it exists.
Is he?
Yeah, he is.
Okay. What's your defence policy?
I'm not going to go through the defence policy here right now. I'm not the defence
You don't, because the
spokesperson.
party doesn't have an official defence policy, has it?
What's the defence policy of Labour? To underspend, underfund, and keep us unsafe at the borders.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Terrifying.
So I
So
can guarantee
what's
that
the
it won't
reform
be
defence
that.
policy?
You know what our defence policy is? To enact the first duty of government, and that is to keep this country safe by all means.
And that is
our
tens
defence
of
policy.
billions of pounds. And where's that money coming from?
Well, that starts with controlling the borders.
Mm-hmm. That's a good start. Yeah, you want to get rid of net zero?
Julia,
I get
I'm not
that.
going to go through. It's not a gotcha moment that you're trying to catch me out.
It's not a gotcha.
I can't list our defence policy.
Julian names outright the party doesn't have an official defence policy. Cunningham's best answer is to ask what Labour's defence policy is instead. Then offer to enact the first duty of government, keep this country safe by all means, which isn't a policy, it's just a slogan, before she defaults to her factory seconds and says it starts with controlling borders. Her own final line gives the game away. I can't list our defence policy. Nobody put those words in her mouth, she said them herself. So let's put all this together and you've got a story with two layers. The people who are supposed to be cheering reform on think this by-election was a genuine unforced error, costing them a real shot at embarrassing Labour in Manchester, costing them donors and handing Kemi Badenoch a free line to use against Farage's own slogan. And then the person Reform keeps sending out to try and do some damage control and clean up the mess can't even get through a single interview without contradicting herself, admitting that she doesn't know the basic facts about her own campaign, or simply refusing to answer the question that was actually asked. Nigel Farage built his whole career on being the one politician who says what he thinks and doesn't flinch from a fight. What his own side is showing this week is a party that can't articulate why it's fighting in this one at all. And to see how it's drastically going wrong for him, well, you need to watch the video that's on screen now. Thanks for watching, don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.